हेलो 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 1 2 3 हेलो।
हाँ हेलो। हाँ हाँ, ठीक है।
हेलो हेलो 1 2 3 हेलो।
हाँ,
हेलो
लगातार बोलो।
हेलो
हाँ,
हेलो
नेगी
वन
जी
टू
और
थ्री
बोलो।
हेलो।
हाँ।
हेलो माई टेस्टिंग हेलो। 1 2 3 हेलो। 1 2 3 हेलो हेलो। माई टेस्टिंग हेलो। 1 2 3 हेलो।
हाँ
हेलो 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 हेलो
हाँ, हेलो
हेलो
आ रही है,
वन टू
आवाज आ
थ्री
रही है।
हेलो। हेलो
लगातार
हेलो
बोलो।
हेलो 1 2 3 हेलो। हेलो माई टेस्टिंग
नेगी जी और
हेलो।
बोलो।
हेलो हेलो 1 2 3 हेलो। हेलो 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 माई टेस्टिंग हेलो। 1 2 3 हेलो। हेलो 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 हेलो
आ रही है, आवाज आ
हेलो
रही
हेलो हेलो 1 2 3 हेलो। हेलो 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 वन टू थ्री हेलो। हेलो 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 माई टेस्टिंग हेलो। वन हेलो हेलो मुकेश सर। हेलो 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 हेलो।
है। हाँ, नेगी जी आवाज आ रही है।
हाँ मेरी आवाज़ आ रही है सर आपको?
हाँ हाँ, आ रही है, क्लियर आ रही है।
ठीक है ठीक है।
आ रही है अभी। हाँ हाँ, आ रही है, क्लियर आ रही है। हाँ जी। हाँ हेलो। हाँ हाँ, हेलो। हाँ बोलो। हेलो। नेगी जी आवाज आ रही है। मेरी आवाज आ रही है आपको? हाँ हाँ, आ रही है।
मुकेश जी, आपको मेरी आवाज़ आ रही है? मुकेश जी, अनम्यूट हो जाना आप। मुकेश जी, मेरी अगर आपको वॉइस आ रही है तो प्लीज़ मुझे उधर से बताएं एक बार। मुकेश जी, आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं? मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं आप? हाँ, बोलो उधर से।
हेलो
हेलो।
हेलो,
हेलो,
आ रही
आ रही
आवाज?
आवाज?
हेलो
हेलो।
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 हेलो मुकेश, वी कैन हियर यू। यू कैन रिड्यूस द वॉल्यूम। ठीक है मुकेश, डन। अपने आप को म्यूट कर
आ
लो।
रही
आ
है
रही
ना
है ना
आवाज?
आवाज?
हाँ हाँ, नाउ यू कैन म्यूट योर सेल्फ। थैंक यू।
ठीक है
ठीक है
सर,
सर,
ओके
ओके
सर।
सर।
ओके ओके। और पक्का म्यूट पे रहना हमेशा। उसकी वायर निकाल दे भाई, कल गलती से वो बोल दे तो यहाँ डिस्टर्ब कर दो।
हाँ जी, आवाज आ रही, थोड़ी थोड़ी शार्प हो रही है आवाज। हाँ, आवाज बहुत तेज थी। हाँ ठीक।
आ रही है ना आवाज?
हाँ हाँ, ठीक है
ठीक है
सर,
सर,
ओके।
ओके सर।
A very good morning to all. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you're doing, you will be successful. A very good morning to all present here. I warmly welcome our chief guest, Dr. Randeep Guleria, Director, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, who has graciously consented to be the keynote speaker for establish integrity. I invite Professor Geeta Venkatraman, Dean, Research and Consultancy Division of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Dr. Guleria, thank you so much for agreeing to be our keynote speaker today. And Professor Lathar and Dr. Malik, without whose support and encouragement, we couldn't have done any of this. So thank you very much that you're part of this event. Welcome to all of you. The conceiving of this Shodhotsav festival actually took place almost 2 years earlier. The first round of Shodhotsav that we had showcased faculty research, and during that time we had a few workshops which were aimed at our research scholars. And this was in January 2020, and very rightly our research scholars said, when are you going to do a research festival that showcases our work? And that is when we started thinking about this, and we felt that the next round of the research festival that we would have should focus on our research scholars. Unfortunately, the pandemic intervened, and we've taken quite a long while to come out of it, and I'm grateful, and particularly to Dr. Guleria, who gave us all courage during that time. So this round, we decided that we would, have a festival which would allow young researchers from all over our country to present their work. And I'm very, very glad to say that we have papers that have come in from all over the country. So we have papers coming from the states of Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and of course Delhi. Delhi, every single major university which has social sciences and humanities has registered a presence in our conference. We have a large number of presenters from Delhi University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, IGNOU, NIPA, Jamia Millia Islamia, and South Asian University as well. Again, the papers have come from urban cities, Mumbai, rural areas like Khamgaon and Kumbari, and it's been delightful to see the range of topics that people have worked on during this period. So it's with great pleasure that I look forward to listening to many of these. We also have some wonderful panel discussions. And I must say that so far we've had a lot of enthusiastic support, and the 2 precursor workshops that we had were extremely well attended. And what really heartened me, particularly after the second one, which was an academic writing, is 2 young students came up and they complained. Now, you might think that if they've complained, why am I happy? But they complained that they were undergraduate students and that they had attended this academic writing workshop, and they said, ma'am, why aren't you organizing things like this for the undergraduates? So I just felt so pleased when they said that, and I hope that all the deans who have undergraduate programs in their schools are listening, and will organize something for them too. With this, I shall hand over the proceedings back to Kritika. Welcome all of you, and I hope we have all your support through these 3 days, online and offline, for our events. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'd like to tell you about our chief guest today. Dr. Guleria is an Indian pulmonologist and the director of the All India Medical Institute of Medical Sciences. He is regarded as one of India's leading medical experts and is credited with the establishment of India's first center for pulmonary medicines and sleep disorders at AIIMS. He has played an extremely important role in India's COVID-19 response effort. Dr. Guleria started his medical studies at IGMC Shimla, from where he received an undergraduate degree in medicine. Afterwards, he attended the Postgraduate Institute of Medical He has been awarded the prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy National Award in the year 2014 under Eminent Medical Person category by the Medical Council of India. Coming to his research findings have been recorded by way of 36 book chapters and 268 articles, and he's been cited more than 11,000 times. Some of the journals where his articles have been published recently include The Lancet, the Journal of Clinical Medicine, Journal of Medical Virology. Recently, he's even co-authored a book. The title of the book is Till We Win, India's Fight Against the COVID-19 Pandemic, with Chandrakant Laharia and Gagandeep Kank. It is time to felicitate our chief guest, Dr. Randeep Guleria. May I request our Vice Chancellor, ma'am, to felicitate, sir? Okay. I would now request Professor Anu Singh Lathar, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, ma'am, to share her thoughts with us.
Very warm good morning to all of you, and warm welcome to all of you. Our esteemed chief guest, Dr. Randeep Guleria, everyone knows him, Director AIIMS, and a well-known personality. COVID times, the only person we were looking forward to was Dr. Guleria on the screen. And his medical advice and his presence itself on the television screens gave us such an assurance that we were looking forward to his advice daily basis on 7 o'clock in the evening. We are very privileged, sir, that you are with us today. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Professor Geeta Venkatraman, Dean Research and Consultancy, and the chairperson for Shodhotsav, congratulations to you too. Dr. Nitin Malik, the registrar of the university, Professor Karthik Dave, Dean Planning, Dr. Arindam Banerjee, the chair for the organizing committee Shodhotsav, Dr. Yogesh Nehi, Deputy Dean for Research and Consultancy, the deans, directors, PhD faculty members, and organizing team members of Shodh Utsav. This is the second Shodh Utsav we are organizing today. I welcome all of you to the program and also congratulate all the faculty and the scholars of the university for giving direction and the right kind of direction to the researchers in social sciences. It is the domain for us to work within the framework of the mandate being given to university. The greatest challenge for researchers in social sciences and humanities lies in its societal application and its veracity. It's both ways. Its application and veracity both is being questioned all the time. Finding agencies and platforms for sharing the work which can transcend the issues and problems of societies in an integrative and holistic manner is yet another challenge we all face in social sciences today. The contemporary debate on the edifice and orifice of education points to the pivotal role higher education institutions can play and must play is by focusing on the social responsibility and enhancing the quality of social sciences researches, which is again a very big challenge for all of us. America's greatest wealth is not its products, businesses, or services, but its people, who are drawn from all over the world. US remains the world's greatest crucible of the knowledge economy, confected from its openness to immigration and highly creative workforce. It produces more doctorates with more domain knowledge and expertise than any other country on the earth. No matter what America's sins are, we criticize US society so much for everything. Whatever their sins are, the lines are longest for procuring US visa in front of US embassies than in front of Chinese and American missions. This is not just for immigration and better life, but for meritorious learners and researchers seeking knowledge in true sense. The basis of all knowledge created by US universities and colleges lies in their sincere scientific temper, their honest researches, creative expression, and their innovative ideas. They do not stop here. They commercially test them for products and services they can offer to humanity. Every bit of knowledge created in their higher education institutions are convertible to dollars, thus adding value to the economic development and horizontal growth of their own nation and humanity at large. How does research become effective then in that case? It becomes effective by choosing the right direction and right agenda for research in any higher education institution like ours. To this, I'm reminded of the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln, where he said the very famous line that democracy is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. I would draw a parallel from there. I would say that research is the embodiment of the people, by the people, and for the people. Currently, all social science researchers focus on the paradigm of research for the people and not research by the people and of the people. True research will start happening only when the research paradigm will shift to research being undertaken by the same set of people themselves who are experiencing the issues and problems they encounter in their own lives. Why do social science researchers not get appreciation and respect they deserve? Why they have failed to contribute to a phenomenon as much as natural sciences have been able to do? We have piles and piles of PhD theses lying in the libraries and on our shelves and also in catalogs. Who reads them? Who refers to them? Who utilizes them? We need to set a direction in social sciences researches so that they are read, they are referred, and they get converted into the social capital of society. The emerging paradigm in education is appreciation of STEAM courses moving from STEM courses. And STEAM has an A, where it is arts and arts education. So it is an instructive discipline that intends to start interest and deep-rooted love of artistic expression and science in youngsters from the beginning. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths are comparable fields to study as they also include strategies. By integrating the arts, STEAM-centered educational programs integrate the study of the humanities, language, its expression, dance, music, visual expression, and new media into technology and sciences. The expansion of the arts to the STEM discipline is significant on the ground. The practices such as demonstrating, developing, explanation, and engaging in critique and evaluation have been underemphasized with regard to maths and science training. This needs symbiosis between the arts and sciences, and the beginning has happened with new education policy. We call it as National Education Policy 2020. It also conceptualizes a concept and a program called Citizen Research Program. Citizen research is the research done by those who are neither the research students nor the professional researchers. Training in citizen research can begin in schools and continue in bachelor's program. Students in these programs may not be able to contribute to collective knowledge in areas that require specialized content knowledge and specialized skills, maybe contributing to quantum theory or molecular biology. They may not be able to do that. However, they can observe and report the behavior and external morphology of plants and animals around them, investigate their own culture, their own language, local history, and many more. They may conduct experiments that do not require high level of content knowledge. So the true research will start happening when all this is going to happen in our society too, observing the phenomena around and experiencing and living with them. New Education Policy 2020 also conceptualizes Atal Tinkering Lab, which shall be established at the schools to encourage and build an innovative ecosystem in schools. Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog shall further support these ideas. This is what has been actually conceptualized in the new education policy and seeing the light of the day by day. We already have AIC AUDF on the campus, which is supported by Atal Innovation Mission. So it has also started working, and we expect our innovation centers to contribute to the research agenda of the university, because research doesn't stop in books, it doesn't stop in paper publication, it doesn't stop writing thesis, and we do not put full stop there. The explosion of unicorns, we know India has crossed the number 100, is a salute to the Indian entrepreneurship. And what's driving this boom today, when we are already in the bracket of 100 plus unicorns worldwide? It's the combination of a very well-planned strategy at the political national level, fast-paced internet penetration, a smooth transition of retail transactions from offline to online mode, and a phenomena which RBI has stated beautifully, fear of missing out. Fear of missing out on the race, that is worldwide race. During the Industrial Revolution, we as a nation watched the transitions of societies and change merely as dumb audiences, because Britishers did not let us participate in the Industrial Revolution. But when the IT revolution came, we see the results and the prowess of our IT professionals and our IT companies worldwide today. In the Industry 4.0 wave, we as a nation now realize our responsibility and prowess to excel. We are carrying the subconscious fear of missing out now, so as we did during the Industrial Revolution. The ecosystem for research, innovation, and entrepreneurial culture is ripe in present times. Let us as a university not miss on this opportunity to contribute this century's revolutionary change in education. I invite all the stakeholders to focus on the research agenda and also give us ideas about how well we can build on the futuristic researches. The futuristic technologies such as artificial intelligence, IoT, robotics, and data analytics will leave us with a lot of leisure times in future for sure. These are the future forecasting for the societies, which are future societies. Biotechnology researchers will enhance the average age to 150 years. So what will we do? What will be the future course of research? I will leave all these questions for you to ponder on. Congratulations to Shodhutsav team and all the members who are part of the ecosystem of research agenda in our university. Our H-index in 2019 was 3, and it has gone up to 15 today. That is the latest indices we have. So it has gone up to 15. It is all because we have started focusing on the research agenda and setting the right direction for the change to happen. I once again would like to thank Dr. Guleria for sparing the time. I know your time is very precious. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.
Someone very rightly said, gaining knowledge is the first step to wisdom. Sharing it with others is the first step to humanity. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your valuable ideas with us. Just a second. As we move on, may I now request Professor Randeep Guleria to deliver his keynote address. Let us welcome him. I'll just set the PPT up. It's gone on sleep mode. Okay.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Professor Annu Singh Lathur, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Delhi, Professor Geeta Venkatraman, Dean, Research and Consultancy, Dr. Nitin Malik, the Registrar, Deans, Directors, Faculty, scholars, students, researchers of the university and from other universities, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me really congratulate the university for this initiative of the National Young Researchers Conference, Shodhutsav 2022. I think this is very, very important, and this really brings in an environment of research, crosstalk, thinking among researchers, among scientists, and actually helps in making the environment in any college more vibrant from the point of view of research and academic activities. When I was asked to give a talk, I was a little bit sort of, if I may use the word, worried or scared, because I come from a medicine background and I could easily give a talk on medicine or science, but to give a talk on humanities and social science to students and researchers was something that became a big challenge. So I thought I would like to really touch upon 2 or 3 things. One is, how has science and technology changed our lives and why it's important for social science and humanities to be a part of this journey, and the effect that COVID-19 has had on all of this. So if we look at how we have progressed as humans, as Homo sapiens, what has really made this huge progress has been this triangle of science, technology, and its impact on society. Science has provided knowledge, it has provided ways for technology to move forward, and technology therefore has developed means for society to become more and more efficient and be able to provide better quality care, which has led to where we are right now. Homo sapiens were way down as far as the food chain was concerned, and now we're on top of the food chain. This didn't happen because of us having developed more muscles or having developed more agility. It happened because of the fact that we were able to think out of the box. We had this whole so-called cognitive revolution, and we were able to develop the ability to outsmart other species on the planet by the ability to think. And that is what science and technology did. And that helped us in various ways. So Homo sapiens actually contributed to the rise, science actually contributed to the rise of Homo sapiens from the Neolithic age. And what really happened was that various developments led to this. Tools, machines, space station, robots, all came in as a part of science and technology. 200,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens were there on this planet, predominantly in Africa, we had stone tools. And using these stone tools, one was able to hunt, one was able to develop strategies to fight the enemy, and that is how Homo sapiens, or our species, actually progressed. About the same time, or I would say before that also, fire was something that man discovered, and fire became a huge thing. Domestication of fire, as it is known as, became something which was very, very important, because it helped humans in multiple ways. It protected them from other species, but it also gave humans the ability to be able to cook. And that helped in getting rid of a lot of bacteria, parasites, and therefore infection control became much better, and one was able to digest food in a better manner. So fire had multiple advantages as Homo sapiens progressed. The Industrial Revolution was then a period of great technological discoveries, and what is important for us to understand is, what was this Industrial Revolution? It's a systematic shift in technology that changes and improves the way that business is done, while creating new businesses across all industries in the economy. And this has happened, and we've had the first Industrial Revolution, the second, the third, and now we're going through the fourth Industrial Revolution. Various things happened in science and technology which changed the way that we live today. The steam engine came in a big way. We had vaccination, which I'll come to later on. We had telegraphs. From telegraph, we moved to landlines, to STDs, and then we moved on to the current phones that we have. And a lot of other technologies came in as far as manufacturing was concerned. So in the 1760s to the 1840s, we had the first Industrial Revolution, which was basically mechanization, steam, and water power. We had the second Industrial Revolution, which led to more productivity, and that was a revolution which saw electricity being used to a large extent. The third Industrial Revolution is more recent, where we saw electronics and the IT evolution. But what we're going through today is even faster than what we've seen before, and that is the fourth Industrial Revolution. The fourth Industrial Revolution, which is affecting all parts of society, from mobile devices, Internet of Things, to advances as far as machine learning is concerned, 3D printing, which is being used in medicine also, smart sensors, which we have all over in all areas, augmented reality, cloud computing, big data analysis. All of this is something that is going to be part of any area of research that you think of. It doesn't have to be science, it doesn't have to be medicine. And this is how things are going to be in the future. So the fourth Industrial Revolution is characterized by a fusion of technologies that blur the lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres. And therefore, when we start talking of these boundaries getting sort of merged or blurred, there becomes also a responsibility from the social science point of view, from the environment point of view, that we make sure that there is equity and there is also balance as far as these development is concerned. So when we talk of the fourth Industrial Revolution, and this is what we're going through, there is going to be issues of inequality. There are going to be issues of disruption of jobs and skills, because new areas would be created and new areas and new expertise would be required. There would also be issues of ethics and identity. All of this as we move forward in the fourth Industrial Revolution, and I think it's something that we need to keep in mind. In 2000, where we could call up the local
that is the change that has happened. If I was to go back even further during my college days,
if I as a student had to call up my parents on the phone, I was in PGI Chandigarh, I had to go to sector 17, book a landline, sit for 2 hours, and then through a landline be able to talk to my parents in Delhi. If you were to tell this to today's generation, people would not even believe that this was true. Now you can use your WhatsApp or your FaceTime and talk to people across the world directly, which was something we never even thought was possible 30 years ago. So the huge change that we have seen as far as science and technology is concerned is also causing a lot of disruption. The same is true for cabs. You can now can have an Ola and you can get the cab at your doorsteps. Initially, you had to go to the taxi stand and talk to the taxi guy and have a taxi sent to your house. And of course, we've seen in the COVID pandemic how learning or teaching has totally changed from being physical to virtual. And that is also a change that has been driven by the fourth industrial revolution. And this change is going to be even faster than what we've seen before. And therefore, there is a need for all researchers to see how it is going to impact society. So the fourth industrial revolution will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to each other. The scale, scope, and complexity of this transformation will be unlike what mankind has experienced in the past. And therefore, it's important for all of us as scientists, as responsible citizens, to look at it in a comprehensive manner. And this has to be done by industry, by government, by private sector, by academia, by social scientists, and even by civil society. Are we able to provide balance as we move forward from the science and advances point of view? As was already mentioned by the Vice Chancellor, we have a huge source of what is known as STEM, science, technology, engineering, and medicine. But there is a need to develop arts and humanities into that. And if you look at the data currently, there is a huge amount of focus on graduates opting for science, technology, engineering, and medicine. That needs to change because we need to understand that unless we have a holistic approach of arts and humanities also, society will not progress in the right direction. So therefore, there is a need to integrate and cross-pollinate as far as these specialities are concerned. And I'm very happy that this is something that's already happening in this university. No specialty alone can adequately meet the current challenges and demands of contemporary society. And therefore, if society has to progress in an equitable and progressive manner, then there is a need to get all specialities on board and there has to be crosstalk, and that I think is very important. Humanities and arts is needed for creative methodologies, knowing the world and developing modes of knowledge production. And it's important because then it helps to connect diverse ideas and provoke unexpected conversations. This is very important in today's time. When I talk of medicine itself, medicine has moved a lot into the technology part. We've moved from what I would say is clinical medicine to more and more of investigative medicine. We've moved more and more from the science, which is also part of medicine, but we've forgotten the art of medicine. Medicine itself is a science and an art. You talk to a patient, you empathize with the patient, you develop a connect with the patient, you get the confidence of the patient, and you are able to provide a holistic care. It's not only the physical care of the ailment that is required, reassurance that is required. Empathy with the patient is important. And as we move forward in many areas of medicine, of science, the art of that subject is being forgotten, and technology is making it more and more sort of, what I would say is non-humane, if I may use that word. So it's very important for us and for scientists in different areas to start conversing with each other. For a long time, science has actually
what I would say is that over.
There has to be crosstalk. We have to move out of our silos. Research will only progress now if we start talking to engineers, we start talking to mathematicians, and we start talking to different specialities. I remember a long time back, I visited a medical university, I think it was in Italy, and it was a medical college, and they had a very vibrant department of mathematics. And they said, we are looking at how we can use maths to do research where you don't have to use animals. You can use mathematic data, and you can therefore do research where you don't have to do a lot of preclinical trials on animals, which at that point in time the European Union was also pushing very much for, because it was felt that there is cruelty to animals was something that they needed to avoid. So whether it was testing various products for humans or even other things like skin ointments, perfumes for safety, they were trying to see how mathematics could help in trying to provide answers which, for the future. So I think it's important for us to look at it now across the board rather than in silos or in vertical areas. Coming to the area that is more close to me, how has this fourth industrial revolution impacted healthcare? And I think healthcare is seeing a huge change because of this industrial revolution. Digitization is revolutionizing the way healthcare is provided, basically to patients, caregivers, and to governments and other areas. Implementation of these technologies will lead to disruptive innovations in healthcare, enhancing patient care and health policies. So what we are going to see in the future as far as health is concerned? New diagnostic methods of treatment and new methods of treatment and diagnosis, better ways of monitoring patients' health care. We are already doing that. You monitor your health care by looking at your Fitbit devices, whether you've exercised adequately or not today, how many steps.
What we are seeing, and this is something that
Robotics, 3D printing, and big data analysis. And I'll just briefly touch on them just to give you an idea of how things change, not only in medicine, science, arts is concerned.
artificial intelligence can change the specialist, are basically radiology
and dermatology. You can have a huge number of X-rays which AI can quickly see. You get a chest X-ray, and we've done that, and
the chest X-ray is seen using
networking, and it will tell you whether this X-ray is normal, abnormal, if the abnormality
is cancer, is less tuberculosis or pneumonia. That is possible. Similarly, X-rays can various other
fractures sometimes get missed by the clinicians. So that is going to change things. Artificial intelligence, will you be able to look at slides? You put a slide and it will tell you that there are cancer cells in the slide or not, much faster and in a better way than the human eye. It will be able to pick up skin lesions. You take a picture of a skin lesion, run it through the artificial intelligence, it will tell you what that skin lesion could be and whether it needs to. Where AI
assisted chest X-rays screening for COVID-19, and we were able to use artificial intelligence so we could pick up
is in a very efficient manner a chest X-ray and be able to diagnose COVID based on a chest X-ray itself. So these are things that are there already in existence and will become routine in the coming few years. The Internet of Things is also going to be going to change how healthcare is going to be practiced. We are already doing that. We have wearable devices, we have implantable devices. You can have devices, and we've done this in studies which we've done on air pollution, that you can have a wearable device which will tell you whether a child with asthma is going to have an attack or not because of exposure to high levels of air pollution. By looking at his respiratory rate, looking at his saturation, if the child is coughing a lot or not, and all of this gets fed into an AI-based program which can predict whether there's going to be an acute attack of asthma. Similarly, you have now various devices. Defibrillators are something which we have for a long time. Pacemakers, these are all implantable devices. But a large number of wearable devices will come onto us, which will help us to be able to monitor people remotely and use prediction models to be able to predict a heart attack, a worsening of respiratory status, a worsening of heart failure, or a worsening of liver failure before it happens, and to be able to intervene. People are looking at strategies of even how you could alert the ambulance or the nearby hospital so that the whole loop is completed and the patient can be quickly transported to a hospital if the wearable devices raises multiple red flags that there is an upcoming attack. It could be a heart attack, it could be respiratory failure, or it could be any other acute emergency. Similarly, augmented reality is changing how things are going to be seen. We're already able to see various things in real time. There are hospitals which are looking at using augmented reality and using that on a patient. And while the patient comes out of the surgery or is in the ICU, he gets a feeling that he's actually in his own room, in his own bed. He's lying in his own bed, and he can see his own TV, he can see his own cupboard, he can see the entire furniture of his room using augmented reality, and that actually leads to better healing, less stress on the patient, rather than being in a different environment where you have other patients and you see doctors wearing all sorts of clothes running around you. So that is also what is happening as far as augmented reality in healthcare is concerned. Robotics in healthcare is a big thing. We're seeing that in a huge way. We saw that during COVID-19 in various wards where we were not wanting a lot of people to go in because they were COVID wards. Robotics and robots were used to clean the floor and to be able to do a lot of activities, including distribution of medicine, whereby the chances of healthcare workers getting the infection became less. So this is going to be something which is also going to come in a big way. 3D printing is something which is already being done. You can use 3D printing to develop certain parts of the body, and that can be implanted. 3D printing can help in surgery. We have our orthopedic surgeons who do spine surgery. They will use the patient's MRI and use 3D printing to reconstruct the spine and then be able to decide how much of incision do they need to put, how much of the depth of the screw should be there to straighten the bone, and what surgeries should they do which will not cause injury to the spinal cord. So that type of surgery is already being done using 3D printing. And of course, for all of us, including people in non-medical areas, big data analytics is going to be huge. A lot of studies which are being done will get sort of nullified because we will be able to just look at the data. And the data that we have in our country is huge. The only issue is we need to see how we can sort of properly use it, properly be able to edit it in a proper manner and be able to share it so that it can be properly used, and big data analysis is going to be a huge thing. Some of the examples that I've already given you: smart watches can detect cardiac arrhythmias and fall of wearer and automatically alert ambulances. I've already told you that. Mobile apps can detect the spread of contagion during epidemic and pandemics. This was even used by using not even a smartphone, a simple phone, by Africa during the Ebola outbreak before COVID. They were able to use a smartphone and alert all the people in that area that there is an outbreak of Ebola. These are the precautions you need to take by sending SMS messages. So the technology is there, it can be used. And genetic sequencing and AI will allow development of innovative treatments. India has already embarked on this, what is known as the National Digital Health Mission, which will help actually in creating an ecosystem and boost a strong digital environment, and I think every one of us will get involved in that. This is basically part of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Electronics and Technology, and the National Health Authority. Everyone would have like an Aadhaar card, a digital health card, which will basically allow universal health coverage in an efficient, accessible, inclusive, affordable, and timely manner. So this is something which will be a game changer as far as digital health is concerned. So if we look at where we are right now, science and technology currently has changed things right across our human lifespan. From in vitro fertilization, IVF, that happens even before the baby is born, to genome sequencing, genome interpretation, to issues of mental health, to old age management and safety inside the hospital. The entire human lifespan is now being governed by technological advances and advances in science. But as we look at this, it's important for us to see that we must strike a balance. We have a lot of change that is happening, but that change also needs to be equated with social needs. It has to have security, it has to have resilience, it has to look at a healthy ecosystem. That change also has to be aligned with environment, with climate, and with the use of energy. Unless we do that, and unless social scientists and people working in other areas come out with research on this, there will be a skewed development which will be pushed basically by only science and technology. And therefore, when we look at social science and medicine in today's era, we need to have it in areas of public health, where we need to look at predictive and preventive study to detect adverse events of various non-communicable diseases. We need to see how can we develop strategies to support the older and vulnerable population. COVID-19 taught us the importance of surveillance. A good surveillance strategy is needed to pick up any outbreak, any abnormality that is happening in society and be able to interact. Big data I've already mentioned, and smart living is also going to be something that we need to see how we can have an equitable distribution of smart living technologies across the board to all sections of society. So as we move forward, it's important to remember that we are now in a new century and there are new problems that we are facing. Times they have changed a lot in this last 22 years. The last 22 years we have seen a huge change as far as infections are concerned. We've had two pandemics in the last 22 years. We had one pandemic in 2009, which was known as the H1N1 pandemic, swine flu, and now we've had the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had a large number of outbreaks in the last 22 years. We had SARS outbreak, we had MERS, we had outbreaks of Ebola, Zika virus, we've had outbreaks of different other viruses, H5N1, which is known as bird flu or avian influenza. This has happened for the first time that so many outbreaks have happened in so short a span in time. Before this, we had a pandemic of this magnitude only in 1918, the Spanish flu. So why is it that this century has seen so many outbreaks? And I think this is related to travel, trade, connectivity, growing urbanization, encroachment into new environments, and global warming. And therefore, again, it's important for all of us to really see how we can really address these issues. What has happened in the last 20, 30 years is that travel across the globe has become much more easier. For most of history, humans have lived in small bands, isolated from each other. If we were living, let's say 40, 50 years ago, either we were living in our own country or in our own state or in our own town or village, and we would really rarely or not usually go to the other part of the country or to the other part of the world. That has changed dramatically in the last 20, 30 years. There has been a huge globalization, and there has been extensive contact with what is called the old and new world in terms of fauna, flora, and that has led to mixing of a large number of infections and viruses. And as we travel, we will carry the infection with us if it's in the incubation period, and this could take the infection to other areas, or infection from other areas could come to our own country, and this is what we've seen in most of these outbreaks. Ebola was only limited to Africa, or more recently, we talk a lot of monkeypox, which there's a huge concern. Monkeypox is basically a viral infection very similar to smallpox, occurred only in Africa, in two areas of Africa, with two lineage strains occurring in basically in Central Africa and Western Africa. Rarely it went out of Africa. But because of travel and because of the fact that once it reaches a certain place, the virus can then spread and develop a cluster there. We are seeing cases of monkeypox across the world. We now have more than 400 cases. And this is something that is happening now so frequently as compared to what we had seen in the past. There's also a huge challenge of urbanization. We have moved from a rural background more and more into an urban background. And therefore, there has been a huge strain on various cities. It has affected sanitation, it has affected the population density, and this has allowed various infections to spread. Even if you look at COVID-19, initially it spread predominantly in those areas where population density was high, Dharawai, large cities, because that is a fertile ground for infections to spread. Various other vector-borne diseases also spread more rapidly in these areas. Dengue, chikungunya, malaria, because of the fact that sanitation is not good, there is vector or mosquito breeding happens, and because of crowding, it spreads quickly in that community, in that area. So it's important for us to keep this in mind. And the other important thing to keep in mind is that zoonotic contact continues to generate many epidemics. In the last 22 years, the pandemics or the epidemics, the outbreaks that I've talked to you majority, I would say more than 95 to 98% of them have been of zoonotic origin. They are viruses which have jumped species and then developed the ability to have good human-to-human spread. Some viruses jumped species but could not develop the ability to have human-to-human spread, did not become human viruses, and they were not able to spread. But all of these, SARS, MERS, Corona, H1N1, swine flu, all have actually developed the ability to become human viruses. And therefore, it's important for us to understand that now, as this planet becomes more and more crowded, we will have a lot of viruses and infection jumping species, and from zoonotic infection becoming human infection. And this is also being further pushed by global warming. And therefore, I think the time has come for us to really look at this concept of One Health. The health of not humans, but the health of the entire planet. One Health looks at human health, animal health, and comes out with this concept that they're interdependent as well as linked to the health of the ecosystem to which we are all a part. So when we talk of health in the future, it will be important for us to not only talk of human health, but also of animal health, environmental health, and health of the planet. And therefore, we will need to have, again, crosstalk between different specialities to develop this whole concept of One Health, where there will be an interconnection of health of humans and animals. All of these infections that we've seen, COVID-19 itself, is a virus which is predominantly stays in bats for a long time. H5N1 stays in in birds or in migratory birds, and they bring it all, the virus travels all the way from Siberia to areas in Southeast Asia, including India. And then it is able to spread to humans. So we will have to start looking at One Health as a concept rather than just looking at human health. Also, as we move forward, we need to look at societal issues in pursuing environmental initiatives, because sometimes that also creates a huge challenge. A lot of places, there is a whole push for rainwater harvesting. But when you do rainwater harvesting, you have to do some construction as far as pits are concerned. This actually indirectly leads to more cost as far as taxation is concerned, because your construction becomes much more. And therefore, there is importance for all of us to look at social economic impact as far as these things are concerned. Educating the public and also trying to change policies so that these are more friendly and are more acceptable to society in terms of environmental issues. Therefore, in today's time, social sciences has to play a very, very important role in people becoming efficient citizens of democracy, developing international viewpoints, more person to really understand the rights and duties that we have as citizens of this planet, and provide knowledge for natural and social environment, which are important for society, as I've just mentioned. And therefore, it's important for us to understand that for science and technology to progress, there has to be all-round personality development. And I think this is something which is very important as we move towards modernization. I'll just quickly switch gears and quickly touch upon how science and humanities actually affected the pandemic. The pandemic affected every strata of society, and this is something that we need to keep in mind. Livelihood, human health, governance and security, social and humanitarian needs, and the economy all were affected by society. It affected trade, it caused disruption, it affected sports. All areas were affected, and therefore when we start looking at an effect of a pandemic, it cannot only be looked at from the point of view of health or the death that it caused. It had an indirect impact on educational. It caused an educational crisis. Schools were closed. Millions of children were learning from home, and this was not an efficient way. There was no character building or the building of an individual's personality if you're just sitting at home and watching a screen. And the marginalized, the underprivileged and female students were less likely to return to school. There was a nutritional crisis. The immunization program got affected. I had calls during the beginning of the pandemic when there was lockdown by parents of many children saying, where can I get my child immunized? His vaccination date is due, but the pediatrician has shut down shop and there is no place where immunization can be given. There were patients who were on the DOTS treatment, on treatment for tuberculosis. They were getting free treatment by the government, but the DOTS center was shut down. They could not get the treatment. And from having treatable tuberculosis, they developed multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. So these are the sort of indirect impact that the pandemic had, and this is something also that needs to be documented and seen what we can do for the future. It also led to a housing crisis, and this is data from the Gates Foundation that 23% of white Americans were not confident that they could pay their rent, and 46% of black Americans were not confident that they could pay their rent, because it led to a lot of disruption and economic loss. So pandemic and the humanities is something that we need to really look at and study, because we need to look at the wider cultural, social, and economic challenges that COVID-19 pandemic threw, so that we can be better prepared to deal with pandemics. And like I said, this century we've seen so many outbreaks, 2 pandemics, that this is not the last pandemic that we're going to see. And therefore we need to be prepared for it. And when I say prepared for it, I'm not only saying from the hospital point of view or healthcare point of view. We need to be prepared for it from a more holistic point of view. What would we do in the future if such thing happened as far as education was concerned? Or how would we reach out to the marginalized children in terms of their education was concerned? So the pandemic will be explored in anthropology, economics, philosophy, psychology, literature, and arts for years to come. And this is something that will drive how things should be in the future. So the question that we can have as far as humanities is concerned is the interconnectedness of humans in the 21st century and the pandemic. I've already told you about overcrowding, travel. How has that affected society? The issues of blame, confrontation, and racism during the pandemic. There was a lot of things that we saw in the early days of the pandemic. Discrimination against caregivers during the pandemic. Many of our healthcare workers had this problem. One healthcare worker who used to work in the COVID ward came and told me that he used to stay behind Ames and on the 5th floor. He says, my landlord now, when I go in the evening, locks the lift because he's scared that if I take the lift, I may give the infection to him. So I have to climb up 5 floors every day in the evening because the lift gets locked up. But he smiled and said, it's a good exercise. But that was the type of discrimination that we saw because of the fear of the unknown, the fear of the pandemic. There was mistrust. We had the anti-vaxxers, the conspiracy theorists. This is still there, and this is something that also needs to be studied from the humanities and social science point of view. And of course, the psychological effect, the mental health. There was a huge mental health, and we brush it under the carpet. But the mental health issues that the pandemic has raised among all strata of society is something that needs to be studied in great detail, and we have to find solutions for it. I know there is a stigma in our society when we talk of all of this, but we have to overcome that. There has been an increase in suicide rates. There has been an increase in people calling up the helpline and asking for help because of stress, anxiety during the pandemic, and we need to really address that. Just to give you an idea of how pandemics have changed, this is what happened during the Black Death, a 14th century pandemic of bubonic plague, which began in China, reached Europe through trade routes. It killed 1/3 to 1/2 of the population in Europe. It caused a great socio-economic, cultural, and religious change. After the initial horrors, society staged a spectacular recovery. This is the period when Renaissance started. It also decreased the influence of the Catholic Church. And because a large part of the population was disseminated because they died, labor was scarce and lands were plentiful, and this led to a decline in feudalism. This led to new social mobility. It led to flourishment of art and literature, and new science discoveries were made. So these can be the turning point in history, which can actually move towards a betterment for society and for mankind. This is an editorial I had written in 2018. I had written of that 100 years after the flu pandemic. This is actually because we had crossed 100 years of the Spanish flu pandemic. We are still vulnerable, and we need to be prepared for another pandemic. I had not realized that by that time we will have a pandemic just a year later. But at that point in time, looking at our preparation and what we had suffered through, if you look at the data, and this is the time when India was under the British colonial rule, we had a huge number of deaths, which was recorded during the British time, during 1918 and 1919 in the Spanish flu. So we have various measures to mitigate the pandemic, and these are documented very well by good scientific papers, meta-analysis, research in terms of hand hygiene, mask, and social distancing. These old age methods actually made a huge difference during the 1918 pandemic in controlling the pandemic. This is the pre-antibiotic era, pre-vaccination era. Yet the 1918 and 1919 pandemic was controlled by non-pharmacological methods. Despite that, in various parts of the world, hand hygiene, masks, social distancing was thought to be unscientific and was not sort of accepted by many people who were so-called educated and were more knowledgeable than the common man. So we need to again try and understand human behavior as to why, despite enough science behind something which is as simple as wearing a mask or having physical distancing, people were not accepting it and more concerned about their individual rights and the fact that they should be the one who can decide and will sort of try and be more rebellious as far as infections are concerned. Vaccines have been another very important part. So besides the non-pharmacological treatment, the other major part has been vaccinations. And vaccination have been touted as the most effective public health measures to end any pandemic and any outbreak. The progress that we've made till today has been because of many vaccinations. If you look at how things were, let's say 70, 80 years ago, almost 1/4, 25 to 33% of children died in the first 5 to 10 years after birth. And that was basically because of diseases like measles, smallpox, and various other diseases which are known as vaccine preventable diseases. Vaccination for all of this was able to really bring things back so that we could have very low maternal mortality. Now it is about 5 children in 1,000 will die as compared to 25 to 33 children out of 100 who are dying at that point in time. All of this has happened because of vaccination. And there was a time when even in aristocracy, people who were kings, and I think it was King Edward, who had 13 children and 12 of them died and were not able to see adulthood. So this was the type of infant mortality and childhood mortality that we had before vaccination. And COVID-19 vaccination currently has been we have given almost 11 billion shots globally as far as this vaccine is concerned. And some people feel that this vaccine has started the beginning of the end. But there have been questions about its effectiveness. Does it prevent disease transmission? How long will the benefit last? And will it work against new strains? I think it's important for us to understand, and this is something that people keep saying, and that's why I put this slide, that vaccines actually work against disease and not against preventing infection. So they may prevent infection to some extent, but they do not, it doesn't act like a barrier, and if you are vaccinated, you cannot get COVID-19. But it prevents disease, and it prevents hospitalization, it prevents admission in intensive care, it prevents death. That is the important thing to understand, that vaccines will give you a milder form of disease, but it will not give you no disease. It also helps in preventing transmission, because your viral load comes down, your days that you can transmit the virus becomes less, so it helps in breaking the chain of transmission, and I think this is an important thing to understand. Globally, vaccine has been accepted, and we have now more than 5 billion doses given. Globally, at least one dose has been given, and 471 crore have received 2 doses. India itself has done remarkably well. More than 100 crore Indians have received 1 dose. That is, more than 1 billion of our population has received 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 88 crore have received 2 doses. But still, ethical issues remain. New technologies and treatment advances bring with them new ethical concerns, and I'll just touch upon them before I close. One, of course, is the problem that we've faced. When ICU beds and ventilators are limited, a large number of patients develop respiratory failure due to COVID-19. Who gets admission in the ICU? Who gets limited ventilators and oxygen support? And these are true questions. During the Delta wave, for the last 2 years, every day in the morning, I have a meeting where we have meeting with our faculty, our residents, our nursing officers, and we discuss issues. And during that time, we would have the emergency department residents getting up and saying that we have more than 100 patients in the emergency waiting for a bed, We are giving them oxygen using a Y connection. That is, you have a tube and then you put a Y connection and then you give it to 2 patients and then you put another Y connection. But we are still running out of beds. And we kept on opening new and new areas which we had never thought we would have to open. We created more than 1,700 beds for COVID and still ran out of beds. So what do you do then? Who do you decide should be admitted? If advanced countries spend billions of dollars in research to develop treatment and vaccines, how do you distribute them between the rich and the poor countries? Do poor countries pay exorbitant sums for these vaccines and therapies? And do the rich get the patent technologies from those who need it? And does that lead to inequity? Important questions which have ethical issues and need to be discussed by social scientists. Another important issue, a famous sportsman is denied the opportunity to participate in a tennis tournament as he refused to get vaccinated. As an autonomous person, does he have the right to deny consent for any vaccine or treatment? Do governments have the right to impose vaccine mandate for the greater good? How is this affected by vaccine safety and efficacy? Another important issue. And these are not examples. These are actually true things that have happened, and we need to address them for the future. Are travel bans and lockdowns ethically justified in a pandemic situation? Again, an ethical issue which social scientists and people who are working in humanities will have to answer. So I personally feel that when we look at the future in terms of research, innovation, in science, in STEAM, we need to have a lot of involvement which is going to be different and out of the box. We have to have public engagement. We have to have science education. We have to look at ethics. We have to look at gender equality. We have to look at equity, open access, and good governance. And I think unless we do this, we will not be doing justice as far as progress for mankind is concerned. Therefore, I'll conclude by saying that science and technology are dramatically changing our lives like never before. We're seeing the 4th industrial revolution. But science and technologies do not set their priorities and decide what to do with their discoveries. Science is driven a lot by funding. If you don't have the funds, you will not be able to do your research or your science. And the funding is driven by a lot of other things which have nothing to do with science. It could do with governance, it could do with religion, it could do with politics. And this has been throughout history. Columbus would not have discovered Americas if he had not got funded by the Royal Navy. Darwin would not have been able to come out with his theory if he had not been funded by the Royal Society to travel and develop the theory of evolution. And there are innumerable examples. Science and technology is driven a lot by, you could say, capitalism, you could say by funding, you could say by various other policies. But for us, it's important that we strike a balance. So science and technology has given society unimaginable opportunities, but also new challenges. And it is for us and the younger generation to see how we can use these or take up these challenges to make sure that as we move forward, it is done in an equitable manner, looking at society, looking at the planet, looking at the environment. Many disruptive technologies are at an early stage, but more will emerge, and we need to really develop strategies to begin with. As far as the healthcare sector is concerned, these are having a great effect and improving efficiency as far as health delivery is concerned, also leading to cost reduction and better information management. But I think the bottom line here is that as science and technology moves forward, it is important for all of us to see that we progress in the right direction and it doesn't become disruptive. The social media can be very useful in terms of giving us a lot of knowledge, but it can also promote hate. It can also promote, let's say, people to start using guns and killing innocent school children. All of that is also driven by social media. So we have to see the progress that we made has this ethical and equitable balance. Thank you very much.
From augmented reality to Homo sapiens to monkeypox to COVID-19, you've given us a lot of food for thought. Thank you so much. that was a very interesting session. May I now request Dr. Arindam Banerjee, Chair Organizing Committee of Shodhotsav 2022, to moderate the discussion round. बस वही हो रहा है. He's here.
Thank you, Dr. Guleria, for that wonderful thoughts that you shared with us, very perceptive, and also opens up a lot of agenda for research for a university like us. We are running a little late on schedule, but Dr. Guleria has agreed to kindly take a few questions. So maybe we can go on for around 10 minutes. So yeah, I would like to invite some questions from the floor. Yeah, Palash at the back.
Hello, hello. Namaskar, sir. In the course of your presentation, there is a slide in which...
Please tell your name.
I am Dr. Shailendra Kumar from School of Heritage Research and Management,
Right.
Kutab campus.
Okay.
In one of your slides, you have shown that in medical or during COVID, there is a fraud management. What is that fraud management, I want to know? By which this August gathering can know about the fraud and can approach in that way. Fraud management.
Fraud management, I don't remember that as part of the management strategy. So I think you're talking of social media and fraud management. That is what the terminology you're trying to say.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say here is that very often you could have a lot of management strategies which are not based on scientific data and therefore could cause more harm than good. So you have, when you're having a pandemic, you're actually trying to develop treatment strategies as you fight the pandemic. This is a novel virus, you don't know how to treat it. But that gets exploited by certain people and they offer you treatment cures which can sometimes be more harmful than good because medicines all will have side effects. And that is what we saw. For example, there was this whole issue of using steroids. And steroids caused a lot of fungal infection, mucormycosis. So when you're looking at management strategies, it has to be driven by research and science rather than being driven predominantly by social media. And that causes a lot of sort of, well, could call it fraud management. But what I'm trying to say is that once that gets, it goes, let's say, viral on social media, everyone starts believing it, and that creates more harm than good.
Yeah, Jyotirmoy.
Good morning, I am Jyotirmoy Bhattacharya from the School of Liberal Studies. Thank you very much for your thought-provoking talk. In the end, you talked about funding and how capitalism and many agendas can impact funding. And I was wondering that today when in our country, the knowledge ecosystem is kind of going beyond the public sector and you have a lot of different kind of institutions doing research, what are we thinking about a national system of funding research in social sciences and sciences, which would be driven by social needs and not by other factors and other considerations? Because earlier when it was public, one could think the funding of the institution itself is also research funding. But now that you have a lot of institutions, both public and non-public, are we moving towards a funding infrastructure for research?
So I think an ideal situation would be to have a funding infrastructure or a core funding corpus which is there, which is driven by science and people who are not biased and are able to fund research based on priorities and the need for the nation, for the need for that region, or the need for that speciality. That would be an ideal situation where funding is done in a transparent manner. What happens is very often the funding is driven by industry. And industry decides where the money lies. I'll give you one example. For example, tuberculosis. We did not have a new drug for tuberculosis after the 60s. Rifampicin was the last drug. The international pharma industry felt that tuberculosis is a disease only in the developing world. there is not much return in investing in treatment for TB, we should invest more in oncology, anti-cancer drugs, old age related medication. And that is why we did not have a drug for tuberculosis for more than 30 years. It took a lot of push by various organizations, the International Union, WHO, to develop a corpus and then develop a strategy for funding for research for tuberculosis, for drug-resistant tuberculosis, for point-of-care diagnostic test. But that was not there for a long time because of the fact that TB was not considered an important disease. And that is what I'm trying to say, that we need to look at it from the point of view of what is there from various sectors. It could be the health sector, it could be other sectors, and fund it rather than be sort of hostage to the profit that is looked at by industry, and therefore the funding comes for that. That has also been an issue as far as vaccination is concerned. Just imagine if we were not manufacturing our own vaccine. If India had not had the capacity to manufacture our own vaccine, where would we be? And we just need to look at neighboring countries which don't have a vaccine of their own. They have to rely on other manufacturers, and some have paid exorbitant price for that, which is not ethically right. But we need to develop a strategy that in the future we are able to correct this and be able to move out of this sort of bias which happens as far as science and research is concerned.
Yeah, can we have another question? Yeah. Just hold on.
Answering to your question and your concern, in the National Education Policy Framework, we've already, government has already constituted a foundation called National Research Foundation. And it's going to be a single window for funding all kind of researchers in every discipline possible for research to happen and the national research agenda to happen. The concept paper is at a very infant stage and it's being deliberated. I think that may help the social sciences to get its better share there while we represent our agenda for research there.
Yeah, there was a question at the back.
Hello, my name is Shadab Nees. I'm a PhD research candidate in Nipa, Delhi. Thank you, doctor, for such a wonderful intersection and holistic approach about science and society. I have a question about ethics in medical sciences. I lost my mother on 4th of May last year in the second wave, and till date the hospital has not issued the death certificate. On the same day when I asked the doctors on duty to issue the health certificate, the replies that I will throw the body out and the body will rot for 5 days and no one will care about it. To get the death certificate, I have to file a civil writ petition, the only writ petition in Patna High Court, and it is still going on. So I have a question, that what about the ethics? Because I won't be able to get this opportunity to ask this question from the director of AIMS. So what the policies to implement the policy, there are n number of policies which says about ethics, but what on the ground, how to implement it, or what kind of the protocols have been set to the doctors to issue the death certificate. And I personally am suffering from mental health issues, and what it has affected my mental health issues after losing my mother. Thank you.
Thank you. My condolences, and I'm very sorry to learn that you've lost your mother. It's something which is really sad, and many people lost their near and dear ones during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll just say two things. One is that, like I said, that there is a need for us to look at medicine both as a science. Art of medicine is that you have to connect with your patient. You have to put yourself in the patient's shoes, and understand the suffering rather than being given immediately. Make some sort of support that the government gives if you are a victim of or a person who has died because of COVID-19. So this be given the country. Some of them don't do that for various reasons, but I think it's important, and you have a right to get a certificate immediately. Just
Good afternoon. Question.
can this is human behavior, and that's why I think this is an area that all of you should do research on. And I'll give you an example. Now, when I tell them ki you forgot in Pune. For and build this not only society more interested in this, we need to move on and do something else. I think we need to develop, start study, we can do this. And we need emotional behavior needs to be looked at. Because this is something which happens as part of human behavior. We've seen that. And that is one of the prices that we had increasing because of increasing which caused increasing number of cases during the Delta wave. On January 16th of last year, we started our vaccination program. People felt vaccine has started, COVID is over. We had all sorts of activities, including Kumbh Mela, and after that, we huge Delta wave. So what I'm trying to say is, despite all of this, we have gotten this, and still we can have to be able to communicate this to the public. Should it be too dramatic? Should it be too scary? Or should we use other means? Go forward, that will help a lot in not only the pandemic, but for if we have
Can we have the last question? Okay. Yeah, last two questions.
Okay.
Her and
मेरा नाम सत्यकेतु सांकृत है। मैं अम्बेडकर विश्वविद्यालय में हिंदी का प्रोफेसर हूँ। हालांकि आपका जो टॉक था करके गिलोय के संबंध में बहुत सारी बातें कही गिलोय को लेकर बहुत बीमारी होती है, क्या इससे संबंधित किया गया? इस बात ये
इनके आयुर्वेद ग्लो आयुर्वेद की दवाइयाँ हैं फल की क्या in a problem हमने आज पुलिस ने इफेक्टेड कुरिकुम में बहुत फायदे हैं हल्दी के फायदे हैं हल्दी इज curcumin there is no curcumin tablet available it has to be done scientific robust research journals research हुई है
Thank you, Satyakit. Thank you. Yeah, last question from the leading.
A very good morning, sir. I'm Kashish Pandey, a PhD scholar and author. So my question is pertaining to renowned organizations such as WHO, UNICEF. Recently, the news was doing the round that WHO was criticized for presenting India in a fabricated and a very negative image for presenting wrong model for COVID-19. So what is your comment on that when such, renowned organizations are presenting fabricated news? So whom should a layman rely on if research will be, based on such weird or unethical way?
So first of all, I totally think the WHO interpretation of data was wrong because it was based on and modeling was done looking at data which was more on social media and newspaper rather than actual hard data. In India, we have the Registrar General of India's office. There will always be a variation and it takes a gap of 1 year. So it will 1 year to register the deaths. And then it records the number of deaths that has happened that year. So this is what we call an all-cause. Secondly, for COVID-19, the government of India had given a package for people who died of COVID-19 that they were getting some financial benefit. So many people subsequently came out and were registered as being COVID deaths, and therefore there is data on that also. So when you have data available, you can use that data. You will obviously have some degree of a margin of error, but then that would be better to use rather than using modeling data. And they used data from certain countries and rejected other countries. They used the data which came from Iraq and didn't use the data which was in so they categorized India at group 2 and not as group 1. Why did this happen? That is something that we can all debate upon, and I've tried to hint about that in my talk also.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Guleria, for your insights. I think in the interest of time, we bring our question and answer session. Is there some more? No, it continues. There's more than one. Yeah, last one. Okay, last one. I think there's somebody at the back who raised their hand before, so maybe you can use another opportunity. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Gurena. A few minutes, Ambedkar University, Delhi. So we need to find the pathology that So yes, so being a mental health professional, I was thinking that we need to define the pathology that has come up as like how we identify people being pathologic in that sense. So what's the take of the field of science and medicine? That do you think that we really need to redefine pathology in times after or in times of COVID? Because like I have like experienced forgetting and somatic experiencing, like bodily pain has become a new normal in human beings. So what's your take of the field of science and medicine in that?
COVID-19, it was like, yeah, you right, totally all right. But then this came out not from doctors, but from recovered from COVID. He then started looking at what COVID. Majority of these COVID, 12 weeks, that is by 3 months, but there are patients for me, heart rate is on the higher side, the pulse is about 110 when previously it used to be 80 or 90. So we are now coming sort of balance of the autonomic system. Some studies suggest that the virus still stays on, the dead virus still stays on. And there are studies which have recently been done, published in the Lancet, where stool samples have been taken and shown that even months after the person has recovered, you can pick up the virus particles in the stool sample of these patients who have recovered from COVID. So the virus may still be present in a dead form, or maybe intracellular in certain organs for a long period of time. So we're still learning more because this is a new virus. So we're still learning, but I do agree with you that there is more to COVID-19 than just a simple pneumonia.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for those wonderful questions. And with this we end the question and answer session.
Thank you, Arindam. I would request Snigdha to hand over the booklet of abstracts. I request Sir, Ma'am to unwrap the booklet of abstracts and declare the conference open. I may mention here that we've gone the e-way. If you want to get access to the booklet, there's a QR code. You access this and you get the booklet. Request our Registrar Sir, Dr. Nitin Malik, to give the vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Anu Singh Lathar, Padam Shri, Dr. Ranbir Guleria, Professor Geeta, Dean Research and Consultancy, Deans, Director, Faculty, Research Scholar, students, and my dear colleagues. What a wonderful inaugural we had with a great eminent personality like Dr. Randeep Guleria being present in the Ambedkar University today. I would request everyone to give a big applause of his valuable time and coming over to our university in spite of being with a busy schedule like this. We had a very inful and insight of how the evolution of the society along with the scientific research and welfare toward the society by the insight valuable given by the Dr. Randeep Guleria in the inaugural session, and also the importance of the arts, humanities, how the thing is evolving from STEM to STEAM as told by our Honorable Vice Chancellor. But in this during process of the Shodha Utsav, which we are carrying out over here in this university, I just would like to add one more thing. Just like a layman, not as a researcher, scientist, but like a layman, as a member of a society, as one of the member of the human society, that as science, we all know makes scientific evidence, travels through the scientific evidence and makes a proof and to the theories with the facts. But it is the belief, it is the faith which makes the belief, and that was an example which we saw in this pandemic time when we could see at 7 p.m. when on the national network, there were 3 people who used to be seen during the pandemic wave. One I remember was Punya Salila Srivastav. She was from the health side, the Lav Kumar, and the third, Dr. Randeep Guleria. And I think and I believe that every home of ours, every home, especially in my home, when my old mother used to wait for the Dr. Randeep Guleria's statement, how the COVID pandemic will be carried out and what is the status. So that is how we had a belief, and with a belief and faith on the medical sciences, belief and faith of our health system, we could fight with the pandemic, and we have come out with the trailing results of what our country had it, with what a tremendous things of the vaccination and effect we had in our country. So this is how the research is being carried out, and as rightly said by Dr. Guleria, that research is for the welfare of the human society, and to know and carry out for the welfare of the human society, we need to understand the human society, and to understand the human society, we need to understand the human being, the society, and the socio-cultural aspects, and where stands uniquely the Ambedkar University, where the research has to be carried out in the fields of art, humanities, and liberal studies. That is how we stand unique, that we have to be in part of every research area to give support to all the scientific evidence to make it more progressive and welfare to the human society. So the thanks goes to the organizing team. Thanks is to all the research scholars who have come from the other universities over here. I could find number of research scholars are there from the other universities, neighboring universities from Delhi and even outside from it. So thanks to the research scholars who have traveled long, and we do hope that with constraints of our space over here in this campus and other facilities, but we'll have a very good 3-day session over here under the patronage of the Research and Consultancy Division, who is organizing the Shodha Utsav over here. And this interaction, this ideas exchange, this exchange of research and frontiers of emerging technologies in the research is definitely going to lead and help us into the human welfare of the society. Last but not least, I would also like to thank the staff of the Research and Consultancy Division, Palash, Sonam, Ayushi, and Naveen, and also all others who have contributed for organizing this Shodha Utsav. 3 days, we all are going to be here, and let's hope and get ready for a brilliant sessions in the emerging areas of the research and towards the development of the society. With these words, I will not close over here because we will close it on the valedictory section, but I have one announcement which I thought I learnt it today morning from Anirban, that I should share it over here with the permission of the Honorable Vice Chancellor. So we are going to have a different functions or different carry out for that thing, but one of our research scholar who is still pursuing our research in economics has been ranked in the UPSC Civil Services as 112 rank. So this is a big achievement for us that Ambedkar University Research Scholar has also ranked into the UPSC Civil Services. And I was talking to the supervisor today morning, but the supervisor, as a supervisor, was said that I will request the scholar to defer her joining and complete her PhD before joining the civil services. So this is how the research goes towards the society with all these words. And thanks to all of you, and also to my all sanitary staffs and all my guards who always stand up, always, even in the COVID time, as a frontline worker. With all this word, thank you very much for a beautiful sessions of research in the 3 coming days. Thank you.
We'll break for lunch now. The first session, the research session, will begin at 2 p.m. We also have a panel discussion on the theme Children in the Pandemic beginning at 4:15 p.m. Hope to see you all. Thank you.